Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. I love all the community building that's happening in advance of building a community at Hopewell. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Carrie Thompson, and I have the great privilege of being the mayor here in Bloomington, and I'm thrilled to see how many people are eager to hear an update about Hopewell. It is really a pleasure to welcome you all tonight. You all come on in. They put me up front because I say all of the things that nobody actually needs to hear so we can warm up. We're really excited to give you an update on Hopewell neighborhood development tonight. This project is going to be really a game changer for Bloomington, but what makes it truly special is that you are a part of it. You are Bloomington community. This isn't just another development, it's our development. It's the city's development, it's your development. As a city-led initiative, we have an amazing opportunity to shape Hopewell into exactly what we envision it will be. It's not just about new buildings. Hopewell means more housing downtown, walking distance to transit opportunities, to parks, to public art, to green spaces and local businesses, all of the elements that contribute to a vibrant, thriving community. We're bringing more quality of life into the heart of Bloomington, making sure it's a place where people want to live, to gather, to play, and to connect. The city team and I are excited to share the progress that we've made and what lies ahead as we work together to bring this vision to light. Tonight we'll discuss how we're designing Hopewell for everyone, a neighborhood that is built with thoughtfulness and intention where everyone can feel at home. We'll have a Q&A at the end of this session, so I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until then. And I, again, just want to thank you for being here tonight. Your investment, your questions, and your feedback will all continue to guide our progress. Together, we're building the future of Bloomington, and it's going to be extraordinary. It is my great pleasure to introduce Jane Cooper-Smith, who on the city team is really corralling us all and leading the charge on Hopewell. So Jane, thanks for all your leadership.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know Carrie's already said that a few times, but it really makes all the difference to have your participation and your attention on the project. I also wanted to thank members of the RDC for shepherding this project, members of the CBCI who were very active in 2023 in moving through the development process, Regional Opportunity Initiatives, and IEDC for their support with READY funds, JS Held for project management, Milestone, and MSI Security, and the many other contractors and subs who have helped evolve the site into its current state. As Carrie mentioned, I'm Director of Economic and Sustainable Development for the city. We have other staff members who will provide updates tonight. Oh, we can switch to the next slide. Kendall Kanoki will provide, who's project engineer, will talk to us about what's happening on the street now. Tim Street is our Director of Parks, who will talk to us about Hopewell Commons, and Holly Warren, Assistant Director for the Arts, will talk to us about public art in Hopewell Commons. Next slide. So the Hopewell site is located about a half-mile south of the Courthouse Square, bounded by the B line on the east, Walker Street on the west, 2nd Street on the north, and Wiley on the south, roughly. It represents 24 acres that became developable for a new use after our community hospital relocated in 2021, at the end of 2021. Next slide. This slide provides a little project history, and what I notice here is the community's continued reinvestment in the site. So about every 20 years, they make more financial commitment. So in 1905, the local Council of Women bought the 10-room red brick house that would become the community's first hospital. The acreage previously belonged to a person named Isaac Hopewell. There was an accident, I think railroad related, the city had no way of treating the injury. I think the person died, and so that kind of sounded the alarm for the community's need for a hospital. So the Council of Women got it done. In 1918, they constructed a 35-bed hospital, which was supported by the community with canned goods, a garden, and even chickens, which everyone ought to know I really love. The community invested in additional expansions in 1944, 1965, 1983, and 2004. And I wanted to highlight this because I think I wasn't with the city. It was maybe in 2015. The discussions about the relocation were just being considered, and my former neighbor, who I would call my Bloomington dad, was really upset about the relocation, and he really wanted me to understand that this was a community hospital. The community elected to invest their tax dollars into it, and they really participated in the creation and the expansion of it. So I just wanted to share that with you all because I thought that really landed with me. So IU Health began relocation of the hospital in December 2021. And the city concluded its purchase at the end of 2023. So you can see the 3 or 4 iterations. And it looks different today. Next slide. So the master planning process started in earnest in 2018 before the city acquired the site. The 2018 comprehensive plan was kind of the first framing device, and then the Urban Land Institute National Technical Assistance Panel visited Bloomington and spent a handful of days evaluating the site and made these specific recommendations for how the city might advance the site and evolve it into a new iteration. Next slide. And then in 2020, Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill conducted the full master planning process, including community engagement. Did anyone in this room participate in interviews or meetings related to that? Okay, thank you for that. So the QR code is a direct link to the master plan if you want to download it. The process was comprised of one-on-one interviews with stakeholders, meetings with neighborhood associations, and online public forums because it was early pandemic. All told, they had 539 unique touch points with the Bloomington community that informed the report that they wrote. The output was a 140-page report with recommendations, renderings, and maps that set the vision for the development. Next slide. So there are 3 pillars for the vision of Hopewell. The first is affordability, that we have to diversify and expand opportunities for all residents, and we all know and feel the need for housing at affordable price points, especially for working families and lower income folks. So the minimum goal from the master plan is 1,000 units, with 20% of them being affordable and workforce housing. The 1,000 unit number came from an evaluation after the master planning process that looked at I'll just say I think that number is the densest estimate of what can be produced on the site. So it may be that we wind up with 800 units, or maybe we will have 1,000 units. Sustainability is another one of the pillars. Understanding that we have to advance toward a zero carbon future. The Hopewell East and West are selected for LEED Silver for neighborhood development. And what this means is it takes a global look at these areas. And so individual buildings and infrastructure, buildings may have different certifications within that overall LEED Silver for ND, but they'll be evaluating the site as a whole. And then it also considers what we, the city, are putting in terms of underground infrastructure, stormwater detention, et cetera. And then design excellence. So just acknowledging that we want to live in a beautiful place, and we want it to be an inspiring neighborhood that attracts us all and serves as a magnet. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of redevelopment, we've got 24 acres. Again, I talked about that 1,000 unit number. Mixed income, so it's focused on non-student housing. units, so whatever the housing product is, could be for rent or they could be for sale. Properties being reused are the garage, which currently has 427 spaces, but in the evaluation that we had conducted, upgrades to the garage, including just reconfiguring the space so that it's used in the most effective way, adding bicycle parking and smart technology, that would shift that into a 480 space garage. So we would actually get more productive use out of that space. And then the core building will be, so it's in development, and I have a few comments from BHA, Bloomington Housing Authority. So Brinshore Development LLC and the Bloomington Housing Authority have partnered to redevelop the core building into 38 low-income multifamily residences. 9 units will be permanent supportive housing with supportive services provided by Centerstone. 12 units are 30% AMI, or area median income, while the remaining 26 will go up to 50% area median income. The development team is working diligently to address final pre-development requirements, such as the environmental assessment requirements from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management and historic tax credit requisites. To be clear, the project is awaiting approval from various governmental departments. We expect the project to close mid-November with a construction start date soon after. So again, that's the core building, the original hospital site. And then just a note on AMI, so we look at area median income as a way to evaluate affordability. That's driven largely by the feds with housing and urban development. And I apologize, I didn't calculate 50% and 30% AMI, but the 2023 area median income for a single person living in Bloomington, I believe, was $62,000-ish. So when we're looking at 50% or 30% of that, that's really people who are not earning enough to live in this market. Okay, so that's the core building. And then 714 South Rogers is the Bloomington Convalescent Center, or former Bloomington Convalescent Center. And in the original offering, that building, the city's perspective was kind of, well, reuse it if you can. During our evaluation over the last 10 months under the new administration, the city's really determined, no, this is a useful building. It has life in it. We don't want all this concrete to potentially wind up in a landfill. So we are prioritizing the adaptive reuse of that building, and we don't know what its future is yet. But it will have a future. So types of development, I'm not going to look at that. So thinking about the neighborhood overall, it's divided into 3 sections. And when you think about McDowell Gardens and what its identity is, we have a lot of single family, small lot, small homes. And so the neighborhood won't go from those small lots, small buildings to giant multifamily apartment buildings, but it'll transition gradually. So the area closest to McDowell Gardens will look the most like McDowell Gardens. And then as it transitions further north, it'll get denser. But we have an interesting slide, if we can look at it in a bit, that shows the overall height of the neighborhood is not anticipated to be taller than the hospital was. So we think the height will still be lower than the hospital, if that context is still available to you, if you can remember back to when there was still a building there. Sorry, I'm just organizing my slides so I can keep giving you information.
Sorry, Jane and everyone, we had some challenges with some folks on Zoom. So.
That's okay, and I've talked way over my time. So I just want to update. So a few items on vision. Neighborhood vision, reconnect adjacent neighborhoods, so that's a priority of the site. Create and connect public spaces. So I've seen a few questions on Facebook about the Hopewell Commons and why does it exist? Well, one, we're trying to really promote connectivity and access to green space, but the creation of that central green space on Hopewell East also allows for more density in that part of the development. So instead of small houses, each having their own postage stamp yard. We've collected the postage stamps together, and then that allows for greater density where the buildings are. And Kendall might say more about that. Okay, development opportunities. So I wanted to talk through the development process really quickly because it may not be apparent what is happening to people who aren't participating in it. So the neighborhood's divided into 3 phases. Hopewell East is from the B line to Rogers Street, and it's the area where you see the Hopewell Commons development happening. Hopewell South is the southernmost part that is adjacent to McDowell Gardens, and Hopewell West is, sorry, what's the southern street for Hopewell West?
First Street.
So First Street to Second and west of Rogers, so Rogers to Walker. So the part adjacent to McDowell Gardens, we currently have a public offering on that, and we are receiving a handful of questions from developers. So the process is the city issues a public offering. It basically says, you know, we're putting these properties on the market. We are in search of X, Y, or Z type of development. We reference the master plan. We talk about, we provide them data on our housing market, and we try to give them as much information as possible so that they can make informed design decisions that will meet the needs of the community. So that period of offering is open through December 6th, and we anticipate receiving a number of proposals, and then the staff will evaluate those, make a recommendation to the redevelopment commission, who will decide, okay, we want to sell this developer, or maybe at some point they'll say, this is basically what we want, and they'll negotiate some of the terms to sort of shift the project exactly into the vision that the community needs. So there is some flexibility within that process if it's open long enough. And so we're in the middle of that process for Hopewell South, and then Hopewell East will open probably within the next month or so. And so that will be larger scale developments, multifamily, and probably a different type of developer will participate in that. And then the third part will be Hopewell West will follow. And I have a QR code to link to the offering so that you all can get in the weeds if you want to, but it's available on our website. And I would like to invite Kendall Kanoki to talk to us about the infrastructure project updates. Thanks.
Did we want to try to restore the visuals, maybe take like a 5-minute recess, or do we want to keep chugging along? All right, we're going to take like 5 minutes to get the presentation back on. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. My name is Kendall Kanoki, and I am a part of the engineering department. And the engineering department has been tasked with overseeing the infrastructure projects that are associated with Hopewell. So I'll give Angela a moment to get to my portion. Looks like we're getting back up here.
So that's the slide I wanted everybody to see.
The visuals help a lot.
So you can see McDowell Gardens on the right-hand side of the screen, and then the dotted line is the silhouette of the former hospital. Helpful, right? Okay, thanks, Kendall.
Yeah. If you just want to keep moving forward. All right, perfect. Yeah, so there are several moving parts in Hopewell, so I wanted to kind of give everyone a visual of the various projects that are going on. So Jane mentioned Hopewell East, Hopewell West, and Hopewell South. These are the areas that are developable lots. And then there's also 2 other infrastructure projects going on, First Street and Second Street. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the various projects. I'm going to start with Hopewell East. Hopewell East is the east portion of the site, obviously. The master plan showed developable lots that Jane touched on That translates into construction drawings for infrastructure. So what you see here are the planned roadways that are a part of Hopewell East, and this is the construction that you've probably seen out on site over the last year. This is what's been coming together. So what's shown here is an extension of Madison Street between 2nd and 1st, and what is University Street, but also called Hopewell Commons, the parks parcels from east to west. And you can also see that there's some alleys that will be used for accessing the lots. One thing that is pretty cool is we have a time lapse here of the construction that's going on. Hopefully that will, work for us here. But design began back in 2021. The project was bid in 2023, and construction began in fall of 2023. And construction is scheduled to be substantially complete by the end of 2024. So we are getting very close. You're probably, those of you who have been by the site can see that it's very exciting. It's coming together. This is a bit of a lapse here of all the construction that has been happening. Funding for this project came from the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission via TIF funds, and this is installing not only the new roadways and sidewalks and curb and gutters, but there's all the underground infrastructure as well. So we have storm detention for all of the lots, we have water mains, we have sewer mains, we have the electric, we have the fiber, we have everything you can imagine, we have street lighting. All of that was going in as part of this project. Jane touched on the future development of the lots, but for now they're going to be vegetated with grass, and they're going to await the future redevelopment. Angela, if you want to go on. I have a few photos here of the current progress on East, so if you just want to go through these. This is what it's looking like. It's coming together real nicely. Beeline was also repaired as part of this. I just took that one a few hours ago, so it's back open. This is some of the commons. Tim Street's going to touch on all of this as well, but I just wanted to kind of show you the progress that we're making out there. It's really coming together, especially when the plants get out there. They were doing some paving today. That was earlier this afternoon. So really coming together. Now this is the environmental cleanup. So that's another aspect of this project. We have removed from Hopewell East and Hopewell South 10 underground storage tanks. So these are tanks that were used by the hospital, but they're also tanks that were used by former filling stations that were on the site. So these are the southeast corner of Rogers and 2nd. There was a filling station. If you go to the next slide, there's some more pictures of some of the removal happening. So you see that big tank that was used by the hospital. And we have also removed 270 tons of lead. We've removed 5,500 tons of contaminated soil. You see that big hole there. And we are very thankful for our partners at the Indiana Finance Authority for their generous support through the Indiana Brownfields program to help us get these sites cleaned up. So this was all state funded, which was really great. And we're going to see some additional remediation happen on the Hopewell West site in the future. Speaking of Hopewell West, that's my next project. So if go to the next slide here, we've got the overall plan. So the subdivision was just completed. These lots and these right-of-ways exist now, which is great. And we have a plan for all of the infrastructure that's going to go on that site. It's been just about fully designed. I'd say 90% done. Now, we're going to, as we get funding or as developers build out the lots, we're going to build out the infrastructure. So phase 1 is actually just going to be this portion here. So the core building project, I think we'll touch on that later, but that's the affordable housing project that's happening in the former core building. And to support that and to jumpstart Hopewell West, we're doing the infrastructure that I have highlighted here in orange. So this is, we are very thankful for the Indiana Regional Opportunity Initiatives and the EDC via their READY grant. We have received funding to do kind of a phase 1 here. And this is going to include the construction of Jackson Street, that south portion of it, the alley adjacent to the core building, and then improvements on Rogers Street as well. So very exciting. The grant provided $1.8 million, which is the full construction and design cost of these improvements. Rogers Street is going to have protected bike lanes. Go to the next slide. Multi-use path on the west side of the roadway. It's going to have tree plot. We're going to maintain the existing parking and unloading area adjacent to Centerstone. So that's kind of the existing and the proposed cross sections. That was from the master plan. And then on the east side is Jackson Street, so that's more of a neighborhood type street. It's going to have street parking on both sides. So both of those are happening. The phase 1 of Hopewell West is going to be constructed in 2025. So we hope to have that wrapped up by the end of 2025 with construction. As you can see in blue here, the remaining phases will be constructed in the future. So no determined timeline on those yet. Next is Hopewell South. So Hopewell South, we completed some demolition this year of the auxiliary buildings. So I have some photos of those here to share. This was funded by the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission via TIF funds. So you can see some of the former hospital buildings there. Those were all demolished this year in 2024. The former Indiana Convalescence Building, Jane mentioned, that has remained. They're pursuing reuse options there. So I just have some photos of where the buildings used to be. We can go through those. That's actually where I got my COVID vaccine. It's all gone now. And you can see the core building there. So now they're just vegetated lots awaiting redevelopment. And in the future, there may be new roadways, new alleys. This is kind of that area where it transitions into McDowell Gardens. So you can see kind of the master plan vision for that area. So that is Hopewell South. Next project is First Street. So this is a federally funded project with a local match. This includes the reconstruction of First Street between the former hospital access drive on the west end. That's the former emergency room there. That building has actually been demolished. And it goes all the way to College. And this is a complete reconstruction of the roadway, so we got new pavement, we have a new water main that went in, we have new storm sewer, we have new sidewalks separated by a tree plot, new curb and gutter, new street trees, street lighting, everything. So we received almost $4.6 million in federal transportation dollars for this project, and that's just for construction. The remainder was funded by the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission via TIF funds. We began design in 2020. Construction began in 2024, and we are scheduled to actually be done by the end of the year. We may have a little bit that spills into 2025, but we're hoping to have the whole road reopened by the end of 2024, and Rogers is reopened, so I'm sure everyone's very happy about that. I have a few photos to share of First Street. We want to look through those. Yeah, so you can see now, in most places, the sidewalks are separated by a tree plot, which is really exciting. This kind of shows the former street cross-section, and in some places there was not even sidewalk on both sides. We now have sidewalk all along the corridor. There's going to be, this is kind of a raised intersection type design. This is Madison and First Street that just got poured very recently, so it's all coming together, and it's really cool to see. This is the new Beeline crossing under construction. That is what it looks like as of this afternoon. So hope to have that reopened for you guys very shortly. There's another one of the Beeline. And yeah, if you want to keep going, I think I have one more good one. That's the new roadway that's still closed. And yeah, here's from kind of the top of the hill looking down. So that curb just got poured. So it's coming together. It's really exciting to see. There's the old core building right there. Last project I wanted to update you on is 2nd Street. So 2nd Street is the reconstruction of 2nd Street between Walker and the Beeline. So the next slide kind of shows the full extent. It actually goes off the page here. There you go. So Walker all the way to the Beeline. Again, this is a federally funded project with a local match. This is going to have new pavement. There's new water main going in, new storm sewer, street trees, street lighting. We're going to have new sidewalks in some places. Some places existing sidewalks will remain. But we are going to do a 10-foot path along all of the Hopewell site where we have the property to do that. We're not going to widen any of the sidewalks where we have historic retaining walls or historic properties or anything like that. We're going to get new traffic signal at Rogers and a new one at Walker. Both of those signals are old and need replaced. Two-way protected bike lane on the north side of the road. There's going to be a new mid-block crossing in front of Building Trades Park, and we are putting in new bus rapid transit capable bus platforms with level boarding. So this means if you're in a wheelchair, you can go directly onto the bus. It does not have to lower down. We've got stops at Walker and Madison, and that's in coordination with Bloomington Transit's master planning of that potential BRT corridor. If you want to go to the next slide, there's a few slides here that kind of show. So this is from the master plan, and that's generally what we're doing. They did show parking in the master plan, but we're not showing any parking on 2nd Street, but you can see the bike lanes. You can see the Hopewell project with the wider sidewalk. If you go to the next slide, there's a few more. Yeah, so this is kind of a rendering of what the bike lanes will look like. You see the mid-block crossing in front of Building Trades Park. The Beeline crossing will be reconstructed, and the refuge island is going to be widened there. So there's some nice improvements coming in. This received almost $4 million in federal transportation dollars, which is really great. The local match was funded out of a 2022 Parks GO bond by City Council. So we began design in 2022. Construction is expected to begin in 2025, and we hope to wrap up by the end of 2026. So those are just 5 of the infrastructure projects that are related to Hopewell. Thank you.
Hi folks, my name is Tim Street. I am the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Director. It is a privilege to have that job here in Bloomington, and I really treasure what we get to do for the community. For part of this project so far, I mean, we are just a part of what has been going on. You've seen the efforts from our ESD department. Our engineering department really took the lead on a lot of the engineering and the construction at the front end of things. And of course, all of the work from consultants on the master plan dating back 4 or 5 years ago. So the Parks Department really got involved with this in 2021, 2022, as we started to take what was conceptualized from the master plan process and turn that into an actual design for a park that would remain a public space, a vibrant space at the heart of this new community to really drive some of that development and, like all of our parks, just serve as an anchor, serve as a community space. We saw that during COVID especially. How important parks are as outdoor community space to knit our fabric of our community together. So this park will be the same. This will provide really great opportunities for people to come together and be a part of this new neighborhood. And at least at first, it's going to be the most visible part of what you're seeing at Hopewell Commons. So as you're standing at the Seminary Square Kroger right now, or traversing the Beeline, or maybe going up and down Rogers Street, a lot of what you're seeing is the park infrastructure. We can go to the next slide, Angela. And go on to the next one again. So from the master plan, this was the concept for the public space that was developed, which is now known as Hopewell Commons. There have been a few conceptual changes to this from when it was rendered. We never had a new rendering done. For example, there is no water feature. We're not including a water feature as part of this park. But Hopewell Commons is approximately 1 acre. Here we've got Kroger and the Beeline Plaza on the east end, and then the 3 developable blocks are the northwest, northeast, and southeast around this. And next slide, Angela. So a park like this, it's going to be hard to imagine this in its complete realized potential until the development comes around it. So instead, I show you a finished space like this. This is in Carmel. This is Midtown Plaza. So imagine our park space a lot like this, but with this development around it. This is something like what the park will look like in the future. Next slide. This was it earlier this year. I think this was an aerial photo taken in May or June. You can see a lot of the shape of the park coming together. Next slide. And then some by the numbers. So what can you expect from Hopewell Commons, which will be our newest park? It's going to be about 1 acre in size. We are going to have about 126 new street trees in this area, which is really exciting. We've been working for years to try to increase our urban canopy. To find space to put urban street trees in can be tricky with utility conflicts. So working with a somewhat blank slate like this gives us a lot of opportunity to put new trees in. A lot of those are going in today, actually. There'll be about 17,000 square foot of native plants going into this area. We're going to have a log scramble play structure, which is something unique that we don't have anywhere else in our system. There's a picture of that coming that you can see. Virtually all of the park, even the road, is curbless and is done in permeable pavers, which will allow stormwater penetration and allow us to reap the environmental benefits of the stormwater penetration there. We'll have security cameras and Wi-Fi in the park. That will be coming courtesy of the city ITS department. There's going to be a stage and a lawn. We will have the park segmented so that we can close it with bollards. So if there's any kind of street festival or perhaps a farmer's market in the future might have a special event there, or food trucks, we have hookups for that to be able to use this space, again, as just a vibrant community space. One really cool feature that I love about the park is that all of the wood, we started this a little bit with Switchyard Park, and we're continuing it en masse with Hopewell, is that it is all thermally modified ash. So we have moved away from using pressure-treated wood, and we are not using any rainforest wood. A lot of parks like this use rainforest wood because of its durability properties. But instead, we are using this thermally modified ash. Indiana has a local kiln that treats wood to make it harder to the elements. It's really neat. And a lot of the wood we're using on this project has been entirely sourced from within Indiana as well. We can't say quite all of it, but a really good portion of it was grown, harvested, kiln dried in Indiana, and installed here at the park. One exciting thing we're announcing too is that we're going to include 3 temporary pickleball courts as part of this. They will be temporary. We have a lot of desire for pickleball in the community. This is a great way to respond to that, to provide new opportunities to play. As development comes in the future, that will displace this potentially, and we'll continue to find ways to meet the community demand. So the fun part, pictures, very recent. So this is the west end of Hopewell Commons. This is the pavilion. The asphalt pad that you see at the bottom left of the photo will be the 3 temporary pickleball courts. We got the idea from another community that installed temporary courts on top of one of their downtown pedestrian plazas. So you can get these rubber interlocking, rubber vinyl pickleball courts that we can use here, and then when the time comes for them to move on from here, we should be able to reuse them somewhere else in the future as well. Here's featuring some of the views that I was talking about, the wood, the kiln-dried wood at the pavilion, some of the seats, and the street through the middle. That's the new University Street. Here we are looking at the stage, so you can see the lawn in the bottom left. This will just be a small gathering space. Again, we don't anticipate programming events here all the time, but this is another, I've described it to people like People's Park, but supersized. It's an urban park. It's our most urban park along with People's Park. It's going to have amenities directly around it. There's going to be people gathering here to dine, eat, get together. We built this stage both as more seating, just a seat wall that people can sit on, but also a place where we can have small concerts like we do in People's Park. Next slide. Just another view of the stage in the middle. We can keep going. Looking to the western block, so again, this is 2 blocks split across Madison Street, the reconstructed Madison Street in the middle. A lot of this is native plant installation. This is a stormwater swale. We don't anticipate that it will stay wet, but during really heavy rain events, we will have stormwater flowing through this area. When Holly comes up in a minute, she's going to talk about some of the art that we expect to put largely into this area as well. So again, you'll have developable lots right there on the north. Just some more details of what we're putting in. The plants have started going in, which is really excited to see all of our native plants and trees going in. This log scramble on the top right is not installed, but this is what it will look like in the surface there. It has not been built yet, but this is what it will be, so something unique as a play feature for our younger citizens. And then last, I just had some other final parting shots of the lots as they stand, a couple here before we transition to Holly's presentation. So we're really excited to open this park. The current timeline is, as Kendall mentioned, the construction is largely wrapping up at this point. We don't have an exact date about when the fence is going to come down yet. We're working through substantial completion and then final completion with Milestone, the main contractor on this job. We still need to determine exactly how and where we're going to leave some areas fenced to let the turf get established and let our plants get established. And then we anticipate sometime in the spring, likely in April, having a celebratory opening event for this after we get through the cold months of winter and we can really get people out there to enjoy the park. So happy and excited to be part of this project, and I look forward to seeing how this park can serve the community and anchor the development here to come. Next up, we have Holly McLaughlin, our Assistant Director for the Arts.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I just want to express gratitude for everyone's engagement in this project. I live on Hopewell. I see your beautiful dog walk by every day, and it brings me so much joy. So I'm just heartened by the city's commitment to this and your all's commitment to being here. So again, I'm the Assistant Director for the Arts for the City of Bloomington. And one of the things I do is oversee some of the city's large-scale public art projects. And some of these projects fall within our 1% for the Arts Ordinance. So the city has this awesome ordinance that says, anytime we undertake a large-scale capital project, 1% of that project's public construction budget has to go towards the arts. And you see this around town. So you see this on the 4th Street Garage urban fabric piece. That's actually one of the largest pieces of public art in Indiana. So go us, we're doing good. You can also see it down at Switchyard Park. This is the Hoosier Line North Star thing that was done as part of the Switchyard Park's 1% for the arts project. And so I want to talk a little bit about why do we do this? I think we get this question a lot, and we got this question a lot when we were asking for public feedback about what kind of art folks wanted to see here. So the National Endowment for the Arts says that anytime we invest $1 in the arts, the community, the surrounding community, and the local businesses see a $9 rate of return. That's great. So it's proven by the numbers. These arts things contribute to the economic vitality of a community. But it's not just that. It's also thinking about a quality of place. When we put these artworks that are large, people in the community see these as beacons. They start identifying themselves with these pieces of art. It becomes part of their civic identity, and it becomes part of that civic identity for everybody around them, and that just leads to the connectivity of local communities. So that's why we do this here in Bloomington, and I'm very grateful that council and the mayor's office year after year has invested in this for our community. So what the heck are we going to do with this money in Hopewell? So our 1% overall budget for Hopewell development, not just the commons, is $190,000. And we decided that we were going to allocate $100,000 of that for a project in Hopewell Commons. After we made that decision, we decided to put together a recommendation committee to help us make a choice about what the art was going to look like that went there. This recommendation committee was made up of members of city staff. We definitely wanted to make sure Parks was involved and engineering was involved, so we didn't mess with any of the other infrastructure that was going on there. And we also worked with members of the Bloomington Arts Commission. So the Bloomington Arts Commission is a city-appointed group of arts experts in our community who volunteer their time to make sure I'm not just like making arts decisions about myself. They make sure that their community is represented when we're deciding what we're doing with public funds. So we got together and we did a call just for artists. We said, okay, regional artists, just tell us what you've done in the past. Prove to us that you can make something that's worth $100,000 stand up and look cool in this community. After we got those original applications of CVs and evidence of artists' past projects, we narrowed that group of applicants down to 4 finalists. And we invited those 4 finalists to give us actual proposals for what they would do in the Commons. And from there, we evaluated those 4 proposals based on just reality, durability. You know, these things are going to be out there exposed to the elements. We also wanted to make sure it was site-specific and kind of matched what else was already planned for here. And again, we just wanted to make sure that whatever was put here felt like an inviting element to the park that would make people excited about coming to this area, either as a visitor or potentially a future resident. In addition to wanting to evaluate all of those things, we also wanted to make sure that we didn't put something there that the public was gonna hate. So once we had these 4 proposals, we did a public call for feedback and said, you don't have to tell us your name, tell us what looks good, tell us what you hate. And we took all of those factors and we chose a piece by local artist John Rasick. And you can see an image of it on the next slide. So this is Undulate by John Rasick. So there are many cool things about this piece. I'm just gonna talk about a few of them. So as you can see, You know, Hopewell Commons is big. We just want a piece of plop art that was just like a standalone sculpture that folks couldn't really interact with. So this is a piece that is going to manifest in many places in many different ways across the Commons. So again, this is the western side of the Commons near that stormwater feature. And the idea that RASIC had was really, okay, I want the curves, the undulations that you see to mimic the natural curving shapes you see in nature. And so there are different curvy pieces that you can look at, but as you can see, there are also places that you can sit. People will be invited to climb on this, and RASIC wanted Instagrammable moments. So folks can go there, snap a selfie, say, look how cute I look, and look at this awesome community that I'm a part of. So we're really excited about this. And then on the next slide, you can see it also has a nighttime LED element. So we're very excited about this. So it will be illuminated at night as well. I want to share a little bit with you about John RASIC. If you don't know him, he is local. He's an amazing designer. He's a professor at Indiana University. He is the director of the Comprehensive Design Program. He is a Fulbright winning artist. He got a scholarship to go to Sri Lanka and do a project like this there. His work is known globally. National journalists write about him. We're super excited about this. This is going to bring a lot of visibility to the community. So very happy to have him here. And again, we're just really excited to install this piece of work, and it's going to be both a place where folks can actively climb on it, but also sit and passively enjoy the neighborhood around it. We're looking at an installation of around summer 2025 for this piece. That's what we've got. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone, for your presentations. I'm not sure where Desiree is for a time check, but, oh, hi. Okay, so, sorry? Yeah, so we have 30 minutes for that? Awesome. So we would love to receive your questions and hopefully answer them. If we can't answer them off the cuff, we will absolutely communicate with you about them after the fact. So any burning questions from the audience?
I have one.
Yeah.
How old is the parking garage that was at the hospital?
Oh, that's a great question. Tim, do you know the answer to that? How, the age of the parking garage? I think it dates from that 1965 expansion, but I can confirm that.
Well, I just remember when we got the new parking garage in the park in my town.
Yeah.
I remember it had kind of aged out, and there were predicted issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, I guess this is past all the planning inspections.
Yeah, would you like to address this?
Kendall found that fast. This is not my area of expertise, but I've heard about this. So I do know, I heard that they had done the appropriate inspections on it and everything and deemed that it was, you know, worthy to stay and better to salvage and reuse than to tear down. Yeah.
Thank you.
What are the measures in place to ensure that the housing that goes in is affordable?
Right. Well, so we have, sorry, I'll just repeat the question. What are the measures in place to ensure affordability of the housing? So we have our vision and our goals that are set within our master plan. And it is just part of the development process. So as we move through each of those 3 phases, we could have a single developer for a single phase, or we could have multiple developers in each phase. That's just part of the math that we're doing as a team to ensure that as the units are created, as the property is developed, that overall 20% goal is part of those developments. And then the city, year over year, has certain parameters in place to manage affordability, thinking about just our hand compliance program. And Angela, I don't know if you have anything to say about that. The second thing I'll say is that a lot of the buildings that will be affordable will be recipients of low-income housing tax credits from IHCDA or from the federal, from Housing and Urban Development. And those have really strict compliance programs that go along with them. And so if any of those properties are out of compliance, they risk losing the funding that they used to build the properties. So they are managed very closely.
And you said a 20% goal, is that workforce housing affordability?
So I can share that more directly with you. I had that in one of my slides, but I don't have it at my fingertips. But yeah, the overall site goal is 20%, and that's a range of everything from 30% up to 130%. Thanks. Yes.
To follow up on his question, I spent some time on the Shalom Beacon Board. I'm concerned about the message that could be sent to people that you're talking about. One of the things that we experience, for example, there are a lot of veterans that need service. They won't go to City Hall. So if you want to serve the veterans, the people from the VA come to Beacon to meet clients there because they won't go to a government building. I'm concerned about this. You've probably seen this article about Summit Hill. If you want to make sure that there's affordable housing, and I'm not talking $1,200 a month per person, I'm talking about housing vouchers that are $700, $800.
Sure.
If you can control the land in perpetuity, you will control who lives there. This project is wise. We leveraged as a city 45 lots from a developer for affordable housing. A lot of those come from Cedar Creek homes on West 3rd Street. If you've not gone and looked at their houses, I encourage you to do so.
Yes, that's
And
fine.
this is no offense to our mayor's previous experience with Habitat. I've volunteered with Habitat. Modular homes are built in a factory under controlled circumstances. Some of the houses at Summit are their houses.
So I'll jump in there. I think you're connecting a lot of really important pieces for housing affordability across our community, and I would invite the mayor to jump in if she wishes. So the project you're talking about is the Summit Hill Land Trust off of Arlington Road, and that is 45 lots that are built on a shared ownership model. And so in terms of thinking about long-term management of affordability, you're making the case that we really can ensure that when we have permanent affordability guaranteed, which is baked into the land trust model. That can look a variety of different ways for LIHTC tax credit projects. What would you add?
Yeah, so I want to broadly address the affordability issue because it is actually why we slowed down the RFP process for Hopewell in the first place. I think most of us know that construction expenses have just skyrocketed lately. It's very hard to build anything affordably, period, no matter how small it is, et cetera, et cetera. So we know we have to get really creative with what partnerships we're going to develop in order to meet affordability, especially affordability outside of LIHTC, because, low-income housing tax credits, because those are direct incentive dollars that come with federal requirements. If we want to meet the workforce housing need, which is a clear need, and another way to think about this is there something between the very low income and the very high income? And the answer right now is not much. And in new construction, we're really missing the mark. And while I'm excited about Summit Hill and it's a great development, we are still seeing that we need lenders on board to do an ownership model that is with a 99-year or permanent affordability. So we're progressing through that as a community. We're partnered up with Summit Hill, and we're excited to see those homes start really selling. But it has been a challenge in the affordable piece of those. The market rate homes up there are selling well. And it is a great product, I agree. This is a national problem. It's not a Bloomington problem. But I know Bloomington is creative enough that we can find some good solutions to make sure that we get a good mix of incomes at Hopewell. So we do expect some LIHTC, and we need that middle income as well. And that actually is a much harder puzzle to solve right now.
Jack?
Just extending the question to the houses on one, anticipated with your 10, 15 or so houses anticipated there. Are you thinking that this Summit model might fit that grouping of houses as well in terms of having a mix of affordability and market rate, or is it anticipated for it to be all market rate, all affordable, or can you speak to that?
Well, yeah, I think I can address that broadly. So this gets into the difference between what is in our master plan and what we will receive through the development process. So the master plan, which has the designs that we looked at earlier and showed small lot, single family along Wiley Street, that is one idea of what would fit within this development. And we just won't know until we have formal proposals to receive. But we will have the opportunity to have some back and forth about what could emerge there. But I think, theoretically, that model could definitely work there. Will they submit a proposal? We don't know. We just don't know. Yeah, and Carrie, I mean, you're our resident housing expert, so I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but yeah, okay. Thanks. Isabel, our council member Piedmont Smith, thanks for being here.
I was just wondering about the bike lanes going in on Rogers Street. So they're going to be protected bike lanes for a couple of blocks, but then what happens south of there or north?
It sounds like a Kendall question to me.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. So this is interesting. It's triggered by the subdivision of the properties to bring the adjacent roadways into compliance with the transportation plan. So the city is kind of acting like a private developer in this case. So it's just the blocks adjacent to the subdivisions that are getting the improvements. There's nothing associated farther south or north. Maybe like Kmart, for example, we have protected bike lanes adjacent to the site because it was required for site plan compliance, but they don't extend further. That being said, I think the city would definitely want to look at the rest of Rogers and see how we can transition those bike lanes in. And we do have bike lanes going in on 2nd Street that'll kind of tie into these bike lanes as well. So that's the reason.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question about the former convalescent center on 714 South Rogers Street. Is this going to be refurbished to make way for 38 low-income housing units, and also the $30 million that's going to be invested in that? Is that money going to be coming from bonds, grants, or from taxpayers?
Sure. Yeah. So there are kind of 3 different answers in that question. So thanks for that. So the 38 units is the core building. So it's the limestone building at Rogers and First. So Rogers and First. So it's a little bit north of that convalescent center. So the convalescent center on Wiley, we call it the Brutalist building. I think it's Bloomington's only Brutalist building. That, we don't know what its future identity will be, but we know that we want to preserve it, and we think that it's viable, and we're working to stabilize it and protect it right now so that it can also go through the development process. So we don't have a price tag on that building. The $30 million number is for the entire investment that the city has made in Hopewell, and I have more specifics. Somewhere. Uh-oh. There we go. Because I'm sure you're not the only one with this question, our controller gave us the numbers. So we have $28.9 million in approved resolutions supporting the overall development of the site. We have expended 21 million, just north of $21 million, and that leaves 7.7 almost $1 million remaining to spend on the site to date. And so that went into everything that Kendall and Tim described in their presentation so far. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Just checking on the commercial buildings on the first floor of any large rentals that happen. Is there any way to control or at least encourage a percentage of private local business and or private local artist space rather than franchise non-local companies? And just to encourage that or make that part of the package if large real estate proposals are made, if that were highlighted as a preference for the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is already a stated preference of ours to have, to be lifting up local businesses. And in fact, our Assistant Director for Small Business Development is here tonight too. We support all the uses that you've just stated. We also know that there will be a great need for childcare in this neighborhood too, with all of the residents that will be in this neighborhood. We know many of them will be our younger residents and will need childcare. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but we share those priorities for the development.
Just a couple more. Is there any possibility for tax abatement or economic or income required for local commercial on that first floor? I know that in the past we've offered tax abatements to large developments or condo building, and if there were some support so that real estate developer might require that is commercial level.
Well,
Again, would be local rather than separate from the residential tax. Give some for that developer. Does that make sense?
yeah, I think so. We have a really, we have narrow guardrails on our tax abatement program. So we can really only provide tax abatements for a few different reasons. One would be the creation of high quality jobs. Another would be the creation of affordable housing units. We don't have a provision in our code that prioritizes specifically local businesses for tax abatements. I'm sure our council members will take note of this recommendation or this thought. So we can amend that code theoretically. But if those businesses were creating high quality jobs, then they would theoretically be eligible for it. But we don't issue tax abatements very often. It's pretty significant that we do that. But there are other incentive programs, and this neighborhood is part of the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Association, which their tax incentives, so if you're talking about a business operator or a business owner that's renting space from another property, they wouldn't be eligible for the real estate abatement anyway, but they would have an automatic ability to request an enterprise zone investment deduction, which would be for business tangible personal property. So that would be something they'd be eligible for. Thanks. And Mr. Davis, I saw you had your hand raised.
Oh, yes, thank you. Maybe sort of tangential to that. I am wondering why the city of Bloomington is giving away to a developer the full rights to put in commercial businesses and mid-range housing, which mid-range housing really means unaffordable housing for those of us who live and work in Bloomington.
I think the premise is not quite accurate, and we are not giving away the rights. If we were giving away the rights to development, we would have not accepted, we wouldn't have purchased this land and be acting as the land developers. But we are, which means that we have a stake in what goes into these spaces, and we've spent an enormous amount of energy as a community and as your municipal government working to ensure that the kind of development that is needed, which is spelled out for us in things like the ROI housing study update. We're trying to ensure that we're meeting those needs and that we're protecting this space specifically so that we can do that.
But at what cost? Because, look, $30 million have already been spent upgrading this to hand over to whoever takes over these lots. And all of a sudden, Bloomington has no control, but they have in perpetuity the expense of the park, of the streets, of the sidewalks.
Again, I don't agree with the framing of this question, but I think the broader way to possibly tease a thread out of here would be to say that we need to be aware of what the trade-offs are as we're engaging in the development process. So I certainly agree with that. Any other questions? Mr. Baker?
Now that the east side is coming close to being finished, do you have anyone, developer, showing strong interest in it?
Yeah, so we talked about the development process happening in the three phases, so south, east, and west. We have an active public offering open on Hopewell South, and we will be opening a public offering on Hopewell East, we think in the next month. That will have to go through the Redevelopment Commission for approval. And I do anticipate that we will have significant response to that. Yeah. How are we on time, Desiree? Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
What would the percentage of rental and ownership be, and what are the price points, what the likely price points or the targets you guys are setting?
So again, that gets to looking at the AMI, area median income, as data point. And I have to pull my slides up to look at the split that is targeted. But I can do that if someone else wants to take the mic, or I can email that. 0. All right, I feel like we're kind of moving through these questions. Would you like to wrap it up for us?
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Do you want to say something else, Jane?
I just didn't thank our council members, our common council, in my opening statements. And they have spent an enormous amount of time on this, as well in the development of the Transform overlay, and have provided a lot of project support. So
Yeah. Thank you to, it really is a neighborhood that has been envisioned by our community and continues to be invested in by the community. And we are committed to really creating something great there. And a lot of the questions that are coming, what's the exact mix, what is it gonna look like, et cetera, those will be determined by the responses that we get to each segment of the offerings that we provide. And it is, it's our shared vision that this neighborhood is a place where people can live and walk to work. They can walk to the grocery store. They'll be welcoming people right into the heart of the neighborhood with Hopewell Commons Park, which is our city park. And it'll be another point on the Beeline Trail of interest and another inviting place to gather as a community. And I just want to mention, because Jane did a great job answering all these questions, that ground floor commercial space, while we would love to have a lot of thriving local businesses in all of our commercial space, the fact of the matter is we have vacant commercial space now, and we need to fill it. So daycare, I think, is a great use, and I think we need to get imaginative and responsive to what the community needs, and help facilitate those things going in, because the more the resources that we all need day to day are close to where we live, the more we can stay in the community that we care about. And so that's my priority, getting the people who live there and live proximate. And I see many people who are in neighboring neighborhoods, the resources that they're going to enjoy and need. And I also have a priority of ensuring that this neighborhood contributes to the activity and the feeling along the Beeline. That is my priority for anything that is going to develop on the Beeline. That it's a presence, that the new neighborhood creates a presence that feels nice to walk and bike next to, and helps people really take pride in Bloomington as they walk along. So thank you so much for being here and for contributing to our vision and for your feedback tonight. We really appreciate it, and we're very much looking forward to the next steps in Hopewell.